Hi, my name's Alex Walford, and in this short video I want to show you what happens to the rate of inserts in MariaDB's Galera cluster when you have network latency. I'm working on a project that requires consistent MySQL or MariaDB across multiple data centers, and Galera cluster fits the bill. It's multi-master. You can read and write from any one of the nodes in the cluster, and the replication will sync up and keep all the other nodes consistent. Since the replication is synchronous, there's a delay when you write. So instead of writing to one node, you have to write to one node, and then that node replicates to all the other nodes in the cluster. And if there's any network latency between the nodes, this can have an impact on the number of records that you can write. In order to simulate network latency, there's a really handy command, and basically I just typed in network latency into Google, and I found this lovely blog article by a guy called Benjamin Kane here, and he's talking about this traffic control Linux command, which is very handy. It's very simple to use. You can add latency to a NIC, network interface card. Here's an example of how that works. I'm going to take his example command here. First of all, I'm going to try and ping google.com so we can see how long it's taking. So we've got about 57 milliseconds here. Now I'm going to figure out what my network card is called, IP address. So I have the name of the network card is EN01. So I'm going to tweak his little command and add 100 milliseconds on. So we'll add 100 milliseconds, and my network interface is called EN01. And so now if I was to ping Google, you would see that it's taking a lot longer, 150 milliseconds, something like that. So it's about 100 milliseconds longer than it was before. I have a Galera cluster stood up. It's 3 nodes, and one of them I've added some latency, and so you can see here there is about 1.5 seconds latency on this particular node, node 1, and nodes 2 and 3 are very fast. I wrote a little Java utility that is going to tweak the latency of the one of the Galera cluster nodes, and then insert a specific number of records into a table, and then see how long it takes to insert those records at that latency. It's using the same command in the blog article here, so I'm basically opening up an SSH connection and using that same command in Benjamin Kane's blog post. I ran the benchmarks at a variety of different latencies, and I tiered them. So for example here, I tried different latency values between 0 and 1,000 milliseconds a second, and for between 0 and 20 milliseconds, I tried every value. And then I tried every 5 milliseconds from 20 to 50, and every 10 from 50 to 100, and then every 100 milliseconds from 100 to 1000. The benchmark results were written to a table using this mapper, and then I picked them up in R and plotted them. So you can see from this chart, on the y-axis we have inserts per second, and on the x-axis we have the amount of latency that was added to the network connection. One of the things I thought was particularly interesting is that we have 2 separate bands of values here. We have this upper band and the lower band that has lower throughput. I suspect that all these lower points here come from the same node, and I need to look into that. Let's have a very quick look at the data, and you can see that these are the milliseconds here, and these are the inserts per second. And as we go down, we really see it start to tail off at around about 9 milliseconds, and beyond that, the number of records per second really flatten out at sort of 10 milliseconds and beyond. So that's a good rule of thumb, I think. If you have network latency of more than about 10 milliseconds, you're going to take quite a significant hit on the number of records that you can write. So that was my quick benchmarking exercise to understand the relationship between network latency and the number of insert commits per second on a MariaDB Galera cluster. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was interesting.